Welcome to the Glenn Beck program. I want to start with thanking Jay Rockefeller for finally saying out loud in public, on the record, on videotape, what I know many of his colleagues are thinking and probably very busy working on accomplishing. Here it is.
I hunger for quality news. I'm tired of the right and the left. There's a little bug inside of me which wants to get the FCC to say to Fox and to MSNBC, out, off, end, goodbye. It'd be a big favor to political discourse, our ability to do our work here in Congress, and to the American people to be able to talk with each other and have some faith in their government and in their, more importantly, in their future.
Who's a cute little senator who wants to do America a solid? You are. I'm sure the best way to restore trust in the government and restore the level of discourse in America is to shut down discourse in America. Like it's the media's fault that we have this gigantic debt. Yeah. Jay, may I call you Jay? Jay, I think of this as kind of like bank criminals saying, you know how many banks we could rob in a day if we just get rid of the police? You know, Jay, I have a little bug inside of me, too. And it wants to stop control-hungry progressives from running our lives and pushing us into a giant global system of government. You know, the kind of global government that your dad liked so much. Oh, David Rockefeller. Oh, miss him. He was a globalist and had a wonderful vision of the future of our world. I liked his speech to the UN where he talked about overpopulation and bemoaned the fact that more infants now survive the birth process. Don't you hate that when your kids survive? He said also more people are living longer. His solution? Let's listen in.
The United Nations can and should play an essential role in helping the world find a satisfactory way of stabilizing world population and stimulating economic development in a manner that is sensitive to religious and moral considerations.
Pleasant. Oh, it's going to be fun. Tonight, how you can prepare and grab as much control, your control of your own life, so you are not indebted or, shall I say, enslaved by a very happy big government control freak. Come on, a lot of work to do. Hello, America. We have a studio audience in today, and because we're gonna talk about some freaky things, and I just wanted to see if anybody else was like, this is weird. I feel a little uncomfortable. We'll talk about preparing for, let's just leave it at that, being prepared. I want to start here. Next week, I'm going to talk to you about this. This is my father's jacket, and I'll explain it all. I mean, it's not, anyway, I'll explain what it's all about, but you see his name in here. This left the family probably about 1976, 79, somewhere in that area. Haven't seen it since. Lady in Seattle in a thrift store called me up and said, I think I have your father's jacket. I just got it, yesterday. You're going to meet her next week because it's an amazing story. But as I was looking at it, I realized the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. It doesn't fall far from the tree. Senator Rockefeller's daddy, as you look at everybody's dad, was an unapologetic globalist. He said, and I want to quote, some people, these are his words in this book, some people even believe that we are part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States, characterizing my family and me as internationalists, and of conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure. One world, if you will. If that's the charge, I stand guilty and I am proud of it. There he is. It's not a conspiracy. And they're not doing it in secret rooms or anything. They're out in the open. They're out in the open. Okay, so the son a Democratic senator, is looking now to use his power to shut down the media. Well, let's go to George Soros. I told you last week about George Soros. George Soros's daddy was a globalist as well. He believed in something called Esperanto. Esperanto is a made-up language. It was designed for a one-world government. It started in the 1890s, 1880s, and he was fluent in it. I mean, he wrote a book in Esperanto for one-world government. Later, George Soros started his Open Society Institute. The main goal of the Open Society Institute was really that of his father's, to create a world free of nationalities, one world government. I wish I had more time today, but we're going to get to it next week. But right now, posted on theblaze.com, you must go there and listen to this audio. The journalists at The Blaze put this together. It is audio that your blood will run cold. This is audio from Soros that you have never heard. Some of these are speeches that he just gave recently. It runs about 5 minutes. Soros explains the anti-capitalist, pro-Marxist tactics he uses to fundamentally transform countries. They are the dreams of his father, which is weird because that's almost the title of Barack Obama's book, The Dreams from My Father. His daddy, by all accounts, was a communist, at least an anti-colonialist, as was his grandfather. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. That's why, one reason why we as parents must take a stand. Our children are watching us. These guys, their children, watch them. And they are completing their dream. In many ways, I'll tell you next week, I think I'm doing that with my dad. I didn't even realize it until this week. Look at who the president surrounds himself with and the groups he works closely with. One of these groups is the Center for American Progress. Remember, we told you last week, this is a think tank. Huge influence in Washington with Democrats. Huge. Everything comes from here. Well, they receive $1 million from George Soros, the Open Society Institute. In 2008 alone, $1 million went here. Well, John Podesta, he was working with the Clintons. This is where he's running it. This is where all of the radical leftists and progressives came from. This is Van Jones. This is Mark Lloyd. All of it. All of it. Now, I have to tell you something. I know that Van Jones left the White House, and I have nothing to back this up other than my gut, and I think my gut's pretty darn good. And also the history of Van Jones and Soros funding of everything. I'm telling you, this guy is a key player. Everyone dismisses him. He is in the shadows. If you want to see the future, you watch this guy. This guy is trouble. He is dangerous. He is a communist that in the 1990s was calling for a violent communist revolution. And he is deeply tied to George Soros and all of the funding. There's something up, much more with Van Jones. He's been watched too long to let him just fade in the night. Now, the Center for American Progress is John Podesta. He was the chief of staff under Clinton. Like I said, he knows how to get things done. In fact, they just wrote this for the President of the United States. This is a study. They just issued a report filled with recommendations to advance progressive change. So what's his advice for Obama to get things done without having both majorities? He says, quote, one of the best ways for the Obama administration to achieve results of that nature in the short term is through substantial executive authority and to make and implement policy. That's fantastic. You know what that means? Substantial executive authority. That means executive orders. Which is really weird, because what he's saying here is you can't get anything done through Congress, so the executive branch will do it. And it sounds familiar because it sounds a little something like this. I think Congress is overplaying their hand. More importantly, I think they're being outplayed and outmaneuvered. I think they are making themselves irrelevant to a massive new federal framework that Obama seems to be erecting, and with all kinds of czars and everything else. Okay, that's what this is. That's what this is. Skip Congress. They've got the structure in place. They've got health care. They have Cass Sunstein. They have everything. They have the banking regulation, everything they need. And if you believe that the ends justify the means, and you don't believe the Constitution is a valid document in today's world, why not just do it through the administration? Too bad they haven't already gotten rid of Fox yet, because then they could get so much more done. Think how much easier it would be if you could get this done if there were no news organizations that would push you or challenge you or alert people on what was happening. Oh, I bet George Soros would actually be against getting rid of the press altogether. Sure. I mean, because he wants to buy them all up. Because that's what he's trying to do, and that's what he's doing in many cases, but that's a different story. Soros never works directly. Remember what I told you last week? He works, the most important, the best year of his life, his words, not mine, was in, what was it, 1944, 1945, during the war. He was wearing a mask. He was pretending to be something that he's not. It was a game to him. Later, we played the words where he was talking about how it's a game. It's a game. Not that time. But now, collapsing economies. And he never does things directly. He does things through tremors. He does things by telegraphing, and then other people pick it up. In his words, this is what he did in Britain. Listen.
I precipitated the event which occurred, I think, the next day or within 2 days. So, in a way, it works as in the Marxist way. A Marxist theory is that you can accelerate the course of history by anticipating it correctly. And I think he's in that particular instance, he's right. It really works that way.
So what he's saying is that they have anticipated that we are going to be one world government. And so he just anticipates, and then when the time is right, he sends the tremor out. He nudges people. Oh my gosh. It's a good thing we have the author of Nudge working with these people. All right, so where does he want people to move? I mean, the Marxist way. He's right there, Marxist way. He gives recommendations waiting for other sheep to follow him. Now, here is the latest Soros tremor. It came out yesterday. There was a private meeting Tuesday. Soros reportedly told wealthy donors, now this is a secret meeting, all kinds of security and everybody else, and these are just the elites there. This isn't a big, huge, you know, there's not 1,000 people there. And this was leaked. The annual Democracy Alliance gathering, according to the Huffington Post, leaked out, so Soros, he said, quote, I'm used to fighting losing battles, but I don't like to lose without fighting. He added, we have just lost this election. We need to draw a line. If this president can't do what we need, it is time to start looking somewhere else. Now, why would you say that? Because you are the administration. This is the guy who's not fighting. The left wants you to believe somehow or another this is proof that Obama and Soros are not connected. But that is ridiculous, because this is where everything comes from. This and Tides. And Tides comes from this guy too. How do you explain the 4 times Soros has visited the White House? How do you explain that during some of those visits he brought with him, what, a date? Christina Chen, this woman. Obama meets with Soros, and he brings with him her. Guess who she's now the new chief of staff for? Her. I mean, hello? Soros's influence is everywhere, unless that's just really bad luck again. I'm sure Soros, you know, and the Soros-funded Apollo Alliance, when they were writing the stimulus bill, that was just a coincidence. And the fact that Soros-funded Center for American Progress got caught managing PR spin for the White House in response to the devastating report on Spain's failed green jobs experiment. I'm sure that sign executive order and other means besides Congress, end quote, coming from the Soros-funded Center for American Progress is just a sign that he really wants to pull out.